Hello everyone, Wylock here. Thanks for joining me today. We are back at it, going back into White Plume Mountain. This is part 3 of our build. You know, in this hobby, it seems that revelations and breakthroughs tend to happen completely out of the blue. You never know when you're going to be gifted with an awesome result. One of the rooms we're going to do today ended up being... It's jumped to the top of my personal list as the favorite work that I've ever done. The terrain is of fairly little mechanical consequence. The players won't spend much time there, but put a lot into it and it ended up looking really awesome. And remember that our sponsor is Heroes Horde for you 3D printers out there. Excellent selection, including all True Tiles lines. Now, before we go any further, I have a problem. The doors are cleaving away at the walls. In hindsight, this makes sense. The doors are made of popsicle sticks, which are totally rigid. They have no give. And the walls are a little thicker than usual, with that tinfoil wrinkle protruding out. So I threw away all the doors that I made. And hey, while we're at it, let me tell you how I made the doors, because I think I forgot to. I used popsicle sticks and cut them into 2-inch lengths, so you can get two 2-inch pieces out of a popsicle stick. Therefore, we're going to get 3 popsicle sticks for 1 door. The middle of the clip-on is, as usual, double corrugated cardboard, because it's the same thickness of the wall, or nearly so. So to create that spacer, I just took some thin cardstock, cut a matching piece and hot glued it on, and the squeezed out hot glue plus that piece gives a little bit of extra width to the clip-on, and it's going to introduce that give so that the doors don't cleave away at the walls anymore. Corrugation gets clad with cereal box cardstock as usual, and then I took some thin cardstock and with white glue put on some banding, just a little bit from the top and the bottom. I don't put on door pulls or doorknobs because I don't have the patience. I paint them up. I recently covered this in my Blingden Stone video, but in case you didn't see that one, this color is called Asphaltum. It's an orangey brown, watering it down a lot and staining the wood with it, and then going to Agrax Earthshade or a dark brown paint, watering it down and going over the dried Asphaltum color. Creates a wonderfully deep, rich, complex wood color. Gorgeous. From there, easy enough, just gunmetal on the banding and black on the cladding. Clips onto the door very easily now. Still holds, but doesn't tear at the wall. Problem solved. Room 9, Pool and Drain. As the characters move along the water-covered corridor, they can see that the water is deeper in a small circular area to the east. This is actually a 10-foot deep pit. So this is not revolutionary. This is made exactly the same way as all the other hallways and rooms. The only difference is I took some watered down black paint, it's really just a wash, and darkened that pit. From the text, it seems that it is apparent to the party, so I don't think this gives away anything. Room 10, Deceptively Deep Room. Ahead is what appears to be a water-covered room with steps rising out of the muck on the far side. Most of the area is actually a 15-foot deep pool. The only shallow spaces is that perimeter that's shown on the map that runs around the room. Now this is a big room. It feels kind of wasteful because really it just comes down to a combat with 2 kelpies. But I'm here, I'm doing this. Let's not compromise. At least let's not compromise today. We'll see how I feel tomorrow. Now, I did have an internal debate raging whether I should sort of hint at those walkways that are a foot deep versus the rest of the room. Should I let the terrain give meta knowledge to the players? Ideally, you would say, no, of course not. But seeing as how this is mostly going to be a display piece, and it's otherwise just an enormous square room, I did end up taking that black wash and darkening everything down except for where the elevated paths are just under the surface of the water. Just for show. That's fine. Who cares? Whatever. We're here to compromise. Also in room 10, in the eastern wing of the pool are 2 partly enclosed areas with entrances that are only accessible from beneath the surface of the water. So they're underwater rooms, so I poured their resin a bit deeper to kind of show that. The southern chamber is the Kelpie's lair, and it contains their treasure. The treasure is 2,000 gold pieces, a suit of +1 chainmail armor, and a piece of jewelry. That's quite specific, so I have to craft that. Chipboard base for the scatter, hot glue to give it some bulk. Got this old miniature from my drawer. I don't remember where it's from or what brand it is. I know it's flimsy and the detail is poor, but I'm going to chop off the head and some other bits. Actually, everything that wouldn't just be like a suit of armor laying there. Also, from my costume bits bin, Just found a little thing that would represent a piece of jewelry. Hot glue all of that down and flock with gold glitter. And there, I have rendered what's in the text. Nice. Room 11, spinning cylinder. The stone corridor changes abruptly to a spinning cylinder apparently made of some light-colored metal. The inner surface rotates rapidly. It is painted in a dizzying black and white spiral pattern, and it glistens as if coated with some substance. That is oil. It's part of a trap. We'll come back to that later. But for now, we will go to the closet door, and to the inside of the closet door, where hang my collected treasures over the past few months. Yes, here we go. This one will do nicely. I process this thing down, cut it in half, cut it to length, dry fit it, make sure it's going to work. And then I prep the hallway in the usual manner before gluing this down. It's just going to make it easier to get that tinfoil in and do all that beforehand. The half pipe is just attached with a healthy bead of hot glue. It's much stronger than it looks. So everything is based in black and the hallway gets painted up. The tube gets left as black, and then with some light painter's tape, I put on the spiral and airbrush on some very light gray, not white. I'm trying to get out of the habit of using pure white in projects. It just doesn't look good. Room 12, Burtts Guard Post. Watching through an arrow slit at the end of the passage is an alert guard named Burtts, just a human veteran. If he sees intruders approaching, he will wait until they're halfway down the spinning cylinder, then ignite the slippery oil with flaming arrows. Also, this room has a couple benches and a table, upon which is a large candlestick and Snarla's spellbook. More on Snarla in a moment. Table's easy, just a couple of craft wood products, you really can't go wrong. Bash them together, then I painted them exactly as I described for the doors earlier. That's my new wood kit, if you will. Candle, as usual, DM Scotty candles, love it. Take a toothpick, put hot glue on everything but the last 2 or 3 millimeters, and then paint that up. The spellbook on the table. Chipboard, 2 tiny rectangles, and then a rectangle of food box cardstock, which is a much thinner type of cardstock. Glue those on, paint them up. Spellbook. And maybe the candle's been used a while and the wax has run down onto the table or it's starting to drip off the table. Yeah, little features like that. Cool, it's not the most complex trap in the world, but it has a human component to it, which is a little uncommon. I like it, there's a lot of flavor over here. It doesn't make a lick of sense to me, but it doesn't have to. It's a funhouse dungeon. There's Burtts. Room 13, Snarla's Sanctum. Unlike the room you just left, this place is beautifully decorated. The floor is covered by fine rugs. The wall is covered by exotic tapestries and shimmering curtains. The ceiling is an intricate mosaic. In the northeast corner, there's a large and lavishly colored bed, and next to it is a low table with a buffet of sweetmeats, cakes, and other delicious-looking treats. And in the northwest corner of the room, there's a brass-bound oak chest. Okay, that's a lot of specificity, which I like. This room, as it says, is unlike the rest in the dungeon. Let's play around with some colors. I clad up all the corrugation and made this very smooth, and then based it with a khaki spray primer. Then kitchen sponging on some, this is called dark brown. I don't think it's dark brown at all. It's more of sort of a maple color, but that's what's on the bottle. Anyway, sponging that on, and then using a brush to get into those nooks and crannies in the corners so it's a nice uniform speckling. Then this gets the usual black wash, 10 parts water to 1 part black acrylic craft paint. Dries in about 15 minutes. While it is drying, I started on that, quote, lavish bed. So I'm using foam board here because it doesn't absorb moisture very much. Peeling the paper off of both sides, and then taking some toilet paper, or any sort of tissue paper, wrapping it around, and wetting it down with a mixture of white glue and water. Or Mod Podge. I don't know, any kind of adhesive should work. And if, as you're setting it in place, it starts to clump up and tear and look bad, just take another dry sheet of tissue paper, wrap it around. It'll quickly absorb and settle right in. Gave that overnight to dry and painted it up. In this case, purple, so base coat with a dark purple and dry brush with a lavender. Now I prepped a whole bunch of craft sticks with that wood paint technique, again, that I covered earlier, and cut them to length, and I hot glued on a bed frame to the mattress. Then, wooden dowels, one at each corner to make a cool 4-post bed, attached on the underside with hot glue so that it stays out of sight. Or be a real hobbyist and use a better glue. I'm not that patient. This is a cool teardrop-shaped piece of wood that I found in my drawer. I'm going to cut this down and have it serve as a headboard. No headboard is complete without dat bejeweling. Oh yeah, so to the costume jewelry bin and find some embellishment for the headboard. You can also see I've put some planks along the top to connect the 4 posts together at the top. Drapes, or curtains, whatever. This is just plain white printer paper, and if you scrunch it up and unscrunch it, and re-scrunch it and unscrunch it, and do that a whole bunch of times, it sort of starts to feel a little bit like fabric, and it becomes pretty easy to work with. So if you cut out I'd say a classical shield shape like this and fold it in half, then when it attaches to the bedpost, it's going to look like bunched up drapes. So I gave those a couple of coats with a fuchsia color here, and it's on a silicone mat because nothing sticks to silicone. It's my Surebonder silicone mat. And while that's drying, I thought about how to do pillows, and it came to me that I was overthinking it. Just a little bit of foam board with the paper peeled off both sides, cut some tiny rectangles, and then push at them and sort of break down the corners and soften them up. Don't even need to paint them, they're the right color and everything. Glue them onto the mattress. Pillows, done. With the drapes dry, I did use some white glue to attach these. For reinforcement, they got glued along the post and along the top of that frame, and then I folded them over just a little bit to hang off of the top of that frame. And finally, to cap it off and hide that ugliness on top, more craft sticks painted in the same way, mitered 45 degrees, and glued along the top of this 4-post bed. Let's get a close-up look of it. Now, if you were fully reading the module, you know by now who Snarla is, but Burkett and Snarla are lovers, and she is actually a werewolf, so that's a whole thing. And I guess they live here in this dungeon, just sort of hanging out and doing minor illusion and chill, if you will. Now let's talk about that low table with the sweetmeats and cakes. By the way, sweetmeats means candy. It's not actually meat that is sweet. I had to Google that. Anyway, I got my standard hole punch, and I got this little 1mm hole punch, punching out a whole bunch of chipboard. Nice graphics medium chipboard, it's like 1.5mm thick. For the cakes, I'm going to glue some of the larger ones together with white glue, stack of 3. And then I have this googly eye, it's a big oval, that's all I really care about. It's a good serving platter, so I glue on some of the tiny punch outs to that. This will be the candy. Now, I was messing around with potions and paint colors, like maybe they're really elaborate exotic cakes with whatever, it's not worth talking about. It looks terrible, so I put that aside and I went to the rugs. I used Google image search and did my usual trick, compiling them in Photoshop and printing them and gluing them to food box cardstock. Turns out Snarla shops at Wayfair. But with these cut out, I can glue them in place in a scattered manner to make it look sort of like a harem, or, you know, give it that Baldur's Gate sort of aesthetic. I don't know. Let's just play around with these. So those are done. Let's dry fit the bed, and the table is looking... let's go to something else. The tapestries, the exotic tapestries on the wall. Once again, Google image search, cut these out, and then wrap them around a toothpick that I've already painted in gold. A little bit of glue stick to attach them together, and then glue that to a clip-on which is painted up exactly like the walls. Shazam! Exotic tapestries. Alright, it's time to confront this problem. The cakes don't look good. I'm not going to do them that way. Instead, for the candies, I'm going to paint those up with not dark colors, but also not fluorescent colors. Something that looks a little more tied in with the medieval setting. For the cakes, I have a honey brown and a standard brown, a chocolate brown. So the side of the cake got painted with chocolate brown, then I glued them on, along with the tray of candies. And then I'm going to that honey brown color and painting the tops of the cakes with that. 2 or 3 coats and putting it on real thick. I'm not worried about texture. Actually, that would be preferable. Then I've got red paint. This is actually Vallejo. It's a nice model paint, but cheap acrylics should work too. And a nice healthy dollop right in the middle. Bam. Yes. Yes. Those look like tiny miniature cakes to scale. I love it. This table is my favorite thing that I've ever done. And once again, I just thank the stars that I met a woman early in life. Moving on to the chest. With cereal box cardstock, I lightly score across it every couple millimeters, and then they crack and bend quite easily, and you could form them around the end of a popsicle stick. Using hot glue on the inside so it doesn't show, and then just painting it up and attaching some costume jewelry as a padlock. Boom, chest. Now let's put this room together. Here's the room, here's the bed, a couple of clip-ons, the low table with the delicacies, and the chest in the corner, just like the module says. And here's Snarla in her humanoid form. I'm getting sick of talking and you're getting sick of listening to me, so I'm going to be quiet for a minute and just let these shots pan around. Enjoy. I'll be back in a moment. And so let's look where we are overall in the dungeon. Tonight we've gone into the middle prong of the dungeon, if you will. Here's room 9 with that deep pit. Here is room 10 with the 2 kelpies waiting. Those are sort of bizarre creatures. I had a hard time finding good miniatures for those. These were printed with my Anycubic Photon Mono. And here's the 2 underwater rooms, including the one with... as I'm recording this, I'm realizing I probably could have and should have put the treasure in there and then poured the resin. Might have looked better. That's okay. Here's our party in the hallway, and Burkett is about to light up their world. Love it. Burkett himself, also 3D printed. That's a 1-page rules miniature. Good stuff. Love them. Here's the table with the spell book and candle. Came out pretty good. I mean, it looks rough in this shot, but remember, I am zoomed in all the way with my DSLR here. It's going to reveal every sin at the microscopic level. And there's Snarla's room. We took a look at that earlier, so I won't harp on that. But here is the miniature I prepared for if and when she transforms into a werewolf. So there it is. We are cruising through White Plume Mountain. I must say, I'm having a lot more fun building this one than I did with Tomb of Horrors. Indescribably so. Not only are the construction methods for this aesthetic easier, but I've been working very efficiently. It's just something in the air. It's going really well. Can't explain it. Thank you very much for watching today. In the off chance that you're new around here, be sure to find us on the Tabletop Crafters Guild on Facebook. Almost 40,000 members doing this kind of thing, making miniature tabletop terrain for their role-playing games. Till next time, I am Wylock. Make things, play games.